Today we're doing a quick commander deck tech about Lathrill, Blade of the Elves, 2 black-green legendary creature elf noble. This is my elf tribal commander deck, and hopefully we will see why in this video. And I'll let you know why I think this is probably the best elf tribal commander and what makes it so good. First of all, Lathrill is a 4 mana 2/3 with Menace. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create that many elf warrior creature tokens. And then you can tap it to tap 10 untapped elves you control to make each opponent lose 10 life and you gain 10 life. Alright, so first of all, why play Lathrill? She has a strong ability on the commander that creates tokens, which is really good for an elf tribal deck because those tokens are likely not going to be 1/1s because you're going to have ways to pump them up with lords like Elvish Archdruid or Leaf Crown Visionary, and then you can also have overrun effects like Allosaurus Shepherd that make those huge. So those aren't just going to be 1/1s. But she also has a second ability which pays off your tribal strategy and pays off her own first ability where you can tap 10 untapped elves you control and make each opponent lose 10 life and you gain 10 life. So that's a strong secondary ability. Second of all, Lathrill gives you access to black and golgari elves, and she gives you access to black and golgari support cards. So let's talk about the strategy of the commander. First of all, we want to make Lathrill larger so that she's attacking for more than 2. So you make more than 2 tokens. Lords work really well with Lathrill because not only does it make her bigger, but also makes the tokens bigger. You have overrun effects like Azuri, so you can get in for more damage. And cards like Azuri also give Lathrill trample so that she can get in even if your opponent has more than 1 blocker. The best card in this deck to make Lathrill larger is Crown of Skimfar, and if your opponent doesn't have enough blockers, because they need 2 blockers to block Lathrill, this can get really out of hand. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each elf you control and it has reach. So you put this on Lathrill, and Lathrill might get +2/+2 to start off with. But as you're making tokens and as the game goes long, now Lathrill will attack, make tokens equal to her power, and now she gets even bigger. So every time you're attacking, she's going to get larger and larger, and you can even kill someone with commander damage with this. But you know, if your opponent doesn't have any blockers, you'll get in with a lot of damage this way and make a lot of tokens. So what do you do with the tokens you make? Well, there's token payoff cards. We already talked about lords. They work really well with your tokens because instead of 1/1s, they're going to be 2/2s. If you have multiple lords, they can be a 3/3 or 4/4. And, you know, you want to attack with lots of damage. And making more elf tokens really helps with that. You have cards like Allosaurus Shepherd, which gives overrun effects. So all those 1/1s you have are now going to be base power and toughness 5/5. Azuri gives them all +3/+3 in trample. So now those little 1/1s are attacking as 7/7s or 8/8s, depending on how many lords you have or which overrun effect you use, so that's going to be really powerful. And then if you don't have either of those, you can use a Skull Clamp. Put the Skull Clamp on one of those 1/1s, draw 2 cards, pay another mana, put it on another one, draw 2 cards, and help you find those lords or those overrun effects. Lastly, one cool thing you do about Lathrill is that you can untap Lathrill with Copperhorn Scout and Wirewood Lodge. And why would you want to do this? So there's 2 scenarios. So first scenario is you attack with Lathrill, you make tokens, and then you use Copperhorn Scout or Wirewood Lodge to untap Lathrill and then activate her ability to drain your opponent. That's really cool because you get both sides of her without having to wait a whole turn. The second thing you could do is you can tap Lathrill, activate the ability, drain your opponents. Attack with Copperhorn Scout. Now untap all of the tokens that you tapped Lathrill and untap Lathrill. Tap Lathrill again and drain your opponent again. So you can do those things with that. And also Wirewood Lodge as well. So untapping Lathrill lets you attack with her and use her ability or use her ability multiple times. And of course, if you need a blocker, you know, you can always untap Lathrill to block with like Wirewood Lodge or something. Wirewood Lodge is also really good with Priest of Titania, by the way. So yeah, the card's insane in this deck. Next, we're going to talk about general elf tribal strategy. One thing that elf tribal gets that other tribes don't get is Mana Dorks. There's a lot of mana elves. You have Elvish Mystic, Llanowar Elves, Fyndhorn Elves are all 1 mana elves that tap for mana, so they can get bigger as the game goes along if you have a lord, but also they just tap for mana, and then in late game they'll get huge. So I like that. And then you also have cards like Priest of Titania, which can tap for lots of mana. There's another card, Elvish Archdruid, which is also a lord, but also has the same ability where it taps for each elf you have. So cards like Priest of Titania and Elvish Archdruid can make you lots of mana. And then you have cards like Wood Elves, which I think you need some of these in your deck, because Mana Dorks are good, but if your opponent wraps or if your opponent kills your Mana Dorks, you're losing out on a lot. But cards like Wood Elves and Nature's Lore, which you also probably play in this deck, can search your library for a forest and put it on the battlefield. So a card like Wood Elves, you probably need in this deck so that you can actually get lands onto the battlefield just in case your opponent has a Wrath or kills your Mana Dorks. That way you still have land. So you have the 1-mana Mana Dorks, the insane Mana Dorks, and the actual Dorks that ramp you. You could also play like Soccer Tri-Builder in this deck. I know it's not a elf, but it's a 2-mana ramp spell that counts as a creature. So, I mean, Soccer Tri-Builder is decent too. But I like Wood Elves because it's an actual elf that does that effect. Next, we're going to talk about making elf tokens. Elvish War Master is the best card to make elf tokens because it says whenever one or more other elves enter, you make a 1/1 elf. So this can get out of hand. Every time you play one of your 1-mana Mana Dorks, this is going to make you an additional elf, which can get out of hand. Not only triggers once per turn, but if you have ways to cast elves on your opponent's turn or make elves on your opponent's turn, this can get really out of hand. It even gets out of hand if you're only casting elves during your turn too. Lissalena Huntmaster, 2 green. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. This does not have the once per turn clause, so that means every time you cast one of your little elf spells, 1 or 2-mana elf spells, you're getting an extra 1/1. This is 4 mana, so it is kind of a lot, but it's worth it if you have lots of elves to back this up. Now, the best elf token makers, Wolverine Riders, 4 green at the beginning of each upkeep. So even your opponents create a 1/1. So every turn cycle, you're going to make up to 4 Elf Warrior tokens, which is really cool. You're going to gain life off of these, but making 4 Elf Warrior tokens during every turn cycle is going to be insane. And the reason I have these cards next to each other is because Elvish War Master triggers only once each turn, but if you have Wolverine Riders and War Master out at the same time, you're going to be making 2 elves instead of 1 because the Wolverine Riders will trigger the War Master, which is really sweet. So what you do with all those elf tokens, well, you make them bigger with lords. We already talked about that. We already talked about Azuri and Allosaurus Shepherd. You overrun and then give them +3/+3 and trample. You use Lathrill's ability to drain your opponent, of course. And then you have cards like Draga Warcaller, cards similar like Craterhoof Behemoth or the Indrace Forerunners. These are like these big effects that when they come in, they give your elves a huge buff. Draga Warcaller is probably the best one because it's an elf, but also gives your elves +1/+1 for each time it was kicked. But that's permanent. So Draga Warcaller, you pay 7 mana, you give all of your elves +3/+3 permanently for 7 mana. So this comes in, you pay 7 mana, all of your elves become bigger, so you can do a big attack, but also they stay that way. So that's why I like Draga Warcaller. Of course, it's also an elf, which helps a lot too. So these are payoffs for elves. We already talked about the overrun effects on lords quite a bit. We also have payoffs that are spells. Song of Freyles is one of the best cards in the deck because it has this ability that makes your elves able to tap for 1 mana of any color, so you can ramp out crazy things and lots of elves very quickly. And in this third ability, you put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible until the turn, so you're making your whole board bigger, and you're attacking for lots of damage without any risk of your creatures dying. You have Wirewood Pride, green. For instant, target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of elves on the battlefield. So what you do is you can cast this on your commander. So you have 6 elves, you cast this on your commander, and now instead of making 2 elves or 3 elves, you're making that many elves plus how many elves you have, which is insane. Of course, if you have enough elves, you do this on your commander, and you can kill someone with commander damage while making tons of elves, which is really sweet. The best card that's a spell payoff in this deck, though, is Kindred Summonings. Whenever you cast a spell, you basically win the game. You choose a creature type, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal X creature cards of the chosen type, where X is the number of creatures you control of that type. So let's say you have 7 elves. You play this. You reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal 7 elves. Put them into play. You usually have more than that. I've done this where I had 16 elves and got basically the top 16 elves from my deck into play. And from that point, it's pretty easy to win the game, especially if you haven't gone to combat yet, because you're going to find lots of lords. You're going to find lots of things that allow you to easily win the game. And of course, this is instant speed. You can do this at the end of your opponent's turn, and then on your turn, attack with all those creatures you find. So anyways, these are your spell payoffs for Elf Tribal. We're going to talk about the black elves that you get from playing Lathrill. You get Shaman of the Pack and Skimfar Shadow Sage, which when they enter they make an opponent lose life equal to the number of elves you control. If you have like 20 elves, this comes in, drains your opponent for 20, and that's game over. So cards like that are sweet. Skimfire Avenger and Prowess of the Fair give you protection from rafts, but in different ways. Skimfire Avenger says whenever another non-token elf or berserker dies, you draw a card and lose a life. So you're going to draw lots of cards if your opponent has a sweeper. And then Prowess of the Fair, whenever an elf dies, you make another 1/1 elf. So cards like this can protect you from rafts, and they also either generate you card value or tokens. So cards like this are sweet that you wouldn't get from mono green. And they're also elves, so that's really sweet too. And lastly, we talk about black utility. So we have Putrefy here. It's not the best destruction spell, but you also have Assassin's Trophy. You have Putrefy is a really good one. You have a lot of other green-black effects that can destroy different types of permanents. Putrefy destroys target artifact or creature. Assassin's Trophy destroys any permanent. So you have spells like that that you don't get with mono green. You do have Beast Within of mono green, but you get more by playing black green. You also get Casualties of War, which is an insane card. I play it in my deck because you make a lot of mana and then you just get like a 7 for 1, so that's really strong. You have cards like Pact of the Serpent, 1 black sorcery, choose a creature type. Target player draws X cards and loses X life, or X is the number of creatures they control of the chosen type, obviously. You play elves, you make like 11 elves, and then you play this, draw 11 cards, lose 11 life. Pretty sweet card draw effect. But of course, you can use this on an opponent that's playing tribal to make them lose the game. If they're playing like Krenko, or if they're playing vampires and they have like 40 vampires out, you just play this, target at your opponent, and make them lose their life total. So that's pretty sweet. Or you can make them mill out depending on how much they have. So cards like this are really sweet too. But of course, the number one reason you play probably Black Elves is cards like Crippling Fear. There's another one called Death of the Eye Blights that does something similar. You choose a creature type. Creatures that aren't of the chosen type get -3/-3 into turn. So you choose elves, and then all of the non-elves get -3/-3. So having a sweeper in a tribal deck is really sweet and really powerful, because this can wipe away all of your opponent's creatures and then leave you with the only creatures in play so that you can kill your opponent. So a card like Crippling Fear is going to be sweet in a type of deck like this. So anyways, these are the black utility cards that you play with Lathrill. So anyways, we talked about the commander strategy. We talked about elf tribal strategy, and we talked about the black elves and cards that you get from playing Lathrill. Anyways, I hope you liked this video. I'll put a deck list in either the descriptions or the comments so you can check out this deck. Let me know what you think about this video. And if you like this video a lot, consider subscribing to this channel. We have a Krenko deck tech also on this channel. And then I also have my main channel where I play modern decks if you're interested in that too. So anyways, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.